What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. So, Iran just simulated an attack against an Israeli F-35 base with various types of ballistic missiles, and they also tested a ship launched ballistic missile with a range of up to 2,000 kilometers. They fired two DESFUL, that's DEZFUL ballistic missiles from shipping containers on a warship of the Iranian Navy called the Shahid Mahdavi. So here you can see this shipping container on the bottom of the screen here. Okay, you see that red shipping container, and the missile is erected out of the shipping container and then launched. And this thing has a range of 2,000 kilometers. That's 1,600 miles, which would theoretically allow Iran to even strike parts of Europe with this missile. So we don't know if this missile's nuclear capable or not. I'm sure they could probably put a small nuclear warhead on it if they want to, but they can put these on container ships, and they could have potentially dozens of these on a container ship that looks innocent, and then they could position it wherever they want and fire these missiles at our allies. But they did simulate an attack on an Israeli F-35 base earlier today, the Palmachim Air Base in Israel. Let me show you guys some footage from that simulation. Okay, so here they are erecting some ballistic missiles, long range ballistic missiles, and they fired these missiles at a target somewhere in the Iranian desert that simulated the Israeli F-35 Palmachim Air Base. Okay, so this is extremely serious, guys. I am very, very concerned about this. So, this is the base that they created in the desert, a simulated base. Okay, this is supposed to be Israel's Palmachim base. You can see those white rectangles are basically simulated hangars where Israel would keep their F-35s in. And then they launched the missiles at this simulated base. And they also use their container missiles as well. Okay, so here they are showing the Israeli base. Okay, they're showing Netanyahu here speaking with an F-35 behind him. And then they show the Israeli base. So let's just watch this. So that's the air base that they simulated this attack on. Just fast forward a little bit here. And you can see them launching the missiles right there. Okay. I mean, this is like something out of a movie, you know? Look at that. It looks insane. So, Iran is preparing for a war with Israel, guys. Okay. Make no mistake about it. These are war preparations, guys. Okay. And here's a shot of the missiles actually hitting the simulated base. You can actually see the blast wave when one of these hits the ground. You can see the blast wave. Look on the bottom of the video. You can see that blast wave spreading out, and it just literally destroys all those targets. Now, those targets don't look too heavily constructed, actually. They look quite flimsy. They look like just some scaffolding with tarp on it, but you can see quite a serious blast wave. So, Iran is preparing for war with Israel, guys. Okay, this is extremely serious. You can see the blast waves there. So, this missile does have powerful warheads. Check this out. You can see that blast wave spreading out. Looks like it's spread out probably a good quarter of a mile from the detonation point. Okay, so very serious situation. And I want to just remind you guys that yesterday, Iran's former atomic chief said that Iran has all the components needed for nuclear weapons. And he used the analogy of building a car. He said, when you build a car, you need a chassis, you need an engine, you need a transmission. He said that basically Iran has all the parts, the engine, the transmission, the chassis, but they haven't assembled it to make that car, okay, to make the nuclear weapon. And also, something the media is not really talking about is this shooter at the Joel Osteen Church in Houston. This shooter had Free Palestine written on the AR 15 or rifle that they were using in the shooting. And this shooter was a transgender as well. So this could potentially be some kind of premeditated terror attack that was foiled. And thank God, nobody was killed. But, guys, they are preparing to hit us here at home. Okay. So this is why you need to be on high alert anytime you go out of your house. And even in church, you got to be on high alert. I actually carry when I go to church, I carry all the time. Anywhere I go, I always carry. Even in church, I carry. I know that sounds paranoid, but these days you just never know. Okay. So carry 24/7 if it's legal for you to do so where you live, and be aware of your surroundings. Know where cover and concealment is. Okay. This is extremely concerning. And as time goes on, we're going to see more and more attacks like this, and they might actually be successful. Okay, they may actually do something serious, like the Boston bombing or something, Boston Marathon bombing. That could happen again. And here we have some footage coming out of Iran. There was some type of a kaboom in a main gas pipeline in the city of Barujen in Iran. You can see this gas pipeline is just on fire. We don't know if this is the result of some type of allied strike, an Israeli strike, or sabotage operation. We don't know, or cyber attack. We don't know, but you can see this massive fireball here. And apparently, the sound of the blast reached a distance of up to 60 kilometers from the site of where this fireball is. Okay, so that's like 40 miles away. People heard the kaboom when this pipeline went up in flames. Okay, so that could have been premeditated and planned. We have some very concerning information coming out of Estonia. The Estonian Foreign Intelligence Agency is reporting that Russia is preparing to double the number of its troops on the border with Finland and the Baltic countries in anticipation of a possible military confrontation with NATO. Okay, this was reported by the Estonian Foreign Intelligence Agency, okay, saying that Russia is preparing to double the number of troops on their border with Finland and the Baltic countries. This is very, very concerning. And we know that the Baltic countries have entered into an agreement to build a massive fortification along their borders with Russia and Belarus. Okay, kind of like a modern day Maginot Line. And just Estonia alone is going to build 600 bunkers on their border with Russia. So if you do the math, Estonia's border with Russia is 200 miles long. That's one bunker for every 1/3 of a mile. That is insane, guys. I want to just share some concerning flight paths with you. So we have this U.S. Marine Corps plane that flew from Okinawa to South Korea. Now, what's interesting about this plane is that it's used for transporting high priority cargo and VIPs in time sensitive environments. So I don't know what's so time sensitive, but they had to move something from Okinawa to the southern part of South Korea, and it dropped in altitude off the southeastern coast of South Korea. And I don't know if it landed or what, but it disappeared from the flight tracker just off the coast of Sangdo-dong. Okay, so very, very concerning, guys. Okay, something's brewing over here in the Korean Peninsula. Okay, the U.S. Marine Corps sending a high priority transport plane, okay, either high priority cargo or VIPs from Okinawa to South Korea. And we also currently have two U.S. Army reconnaissance planes flying near the border with North Korea, near the DMZ. Here we have a beach guardrail just doing loops here right off the coast of Incheon. Okay, and here's the border with North Korea right there. Okay, and this is actually where North Korea has a lot of their artillery placed right here on a lot of these islands. They have artillery bunkers built into the islands, so all they got to do is just open the doors and they can just fire thousands of rockets at Incheon and Seoul and all these areas here. So very, very concerning. And here's just a description from the U.S. Marine Corps website of what this plane does. And this update was sponsored by My Patriot Supply. Guys, My Patriot Supply is doing a discount on their 1 month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to go to preparewith.nyprepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video. This is a 1 month freeze-dried food supply. It has a 25-year shelf life. Normal price is $237. They've dropped it down to $177. So that's a savings of $60. And it's all packed within 2 rugged, water-resistant buckets. Free shipping is included. $177 for 1 month of food. Where are you going to find a deal like that? They also have a general store, and they're always running discounts in their general store on various prepping and survival items. They have everything from MREs, potassium iodide, to survival seeds. And to get to their general store, you got to click on the My Patriot Supply logo at the top of the page when you get to preparewith.nyprepper.com. And you'll see when you get there, they have everything you can imagine. So use the link preparewith.nyprepper.com to get $60 off the My Patriot Supply 1 month emergency food supply. That's $180 for 1 month of food, free shipping included. The link is in the description below this video. And also check out their general store. They have everything you can imagine prepping and survival related, and they're always running various discounts there. It says here the UC-35 fleet is located at multiple sites around the United States and overseas, and is responsible for the transport of high priority passengers and cargo with time, place, or mission sensitive requirements. Okay, so something really important, or someone really important, went from Okinawa to South Korea tonight. Okay, very serious situation. And earlier today, we had a B-52 nuclear bomber flying over the panhandle of Texas. And we also had a nuke sniffer plane that was flying over Iowa. Very, very interesting. And right now, we have Forte 12, an RQ-4 Global Hawk reconnaissance drone flying over the Black Sea. And it's been up in the air basically all day and all night last night. And you can see earlier in the day, it was focusing its efforts on Sevastopol and the southern part of Crimea. And now it's heading east. And it appears it's probably going to be focusing its efforts around the Kerch Bridge and Novorossiysk. So it's possible that either Russia or Ukraine are going to be launching missiles soon. Okay, usually when this Global Hawk is up in the air for this long, it usually means it's either sending targeting information to the Ukrainians, or it's checking to see if any Russian warships are out at sea, and if they have their missiles ready to launch at Ukraine. Okay, so could be some kind of big strike in the coming hours. We'll have to wait and see. And this evening, we had an aerial refueler operated by the U.S. Air Force doing loops off the coast of Norway near Trondheim. And what's interesting is yesterday, two NATO fighter jets had to escort Russian nuclear bombers that were doing drills over here in the Norwegian Sea. So I don't know if this is related to that, if they were refueling some fighter jets that were patrolling the shoreline here, the Norwegian coast, and, escorting Russian bombers. I have no idea, but that's pretty unusual to just see a tanker up in the air by itself up here in central Norway. Okay. And we had this Air Force One plane that flew towards Colorado Springs yesterday afternoon, and it landed in Peterson Air Force Base. We don't know if the president was on board this plane or not, but this picture was sent to me by a subscriber who lives in Colorado Springs, and they saw this thing flying over their house. Okay, and there is a doomsday bunker near Peterson Air Force Base. You have Cheyenne Mountain right next to Peterson Air Force Base, and this thing flew all the way from DC. So I don't know if this was a drill. I don't know if they're relocating VIPs to Cheyenne Mountain, but it's definitely concerning. So wanted to just mention that to you. And we have another fire in Russia. What you're looking at here is an apartment building in the city of Anapa, and Anapa is actually not far from Novorossiysk, which is not far from Crimea and Ukraine. So I don't know if this is the result of a Ukrainian drone strike, if they crashed the drone on the roof of this apartment building, or they dropped some incendiary materials. But this is extremely unusual. Okay, another roof fire. And a few days ago, there was that massive fire in Moscow where several apartment buildings had this huge fire on their rooftops. Okay, so this could be a Ukrainian drone strike. Okay, I think that's probably what it is, because I mean, how often do fires start on roofs? Okay, I mean, that's pretty unusual to have a fire on a roof. Okay, I have a lot of friends that are firefighters, and it's not too common to have big fires like this on a rooftop. It's very unusual. Okay, and you can see how big this fire is. You can see from probably several miles away this huge plume of smoke rising up from the skyline. Okay, and this happened in the city of Anapa. Okay, which is right next to uh, Krasnodar, not far from Crimea. And want to just share something a subscriber of mine sent to me. Somebody from Twin Falls, Idaho said, I've seen 6 as of now, A-10 warthogs flying super low directly over my house the past few days. So low, in fact, that you could hear the whistling of their engines. It honestly kind of seemed like they were practicing dry runs and or dive banking maneuvers by the way they were flying, nose down, engaging, then pulling up and banking left or right. The first day was just one pair flying normal, but still low. The second day, yesterday, was 2 pairs in a box formation. The 2 in the middle were the ones that did the maneuvers I'm talking about. I've lived here my entire life, and I have never seen a single A-10 fly over before. Okay. So that's very, very concerning, guys. Okay. Someone from Twin Falls, Idaho, saying that they've been seeing A-10 warthogs practicing maneuvers right over their house. Here we have another picture from a subscriber. I forget where this was, to be honest with you, but multiple tankers flying over their neighborhood. Okay, these look like KC 135s. They said they've never seen this before. I think this was in the Carolinas somewhere. And apparently, the US and the UK launched airstrikes against Yemen again. They targeted the Al Tuhaida district in the Hodeidah province in western Yemen. And apparently, today there's been ongoing clashes between American backed Syrian Democratic Forces and cells affiliated with Iran-backed militias in eastern Syria. Apparently, heavy and medium weapons are being used, including 23 millimeter anti-aircraft guns and RPGs. Okay, and the Israeli Air Force carried out various airstrikes on positions of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. There was one airstrike that targeted the town of Yarun, two missile strikes in the towns of Mais al Jabal and Shahin, and three airstrikes on the town of Ramia. And what you're looking at here are some pictures of these strikes. You can see these giant plumes of smoke here coming out from the horizon. Okay, so serious airstrikes by Israel. And Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, said today, addressing the Israeli defense minister, that the Israeli defense minister must understand that if he starts a war against us, he will have 2 million displaced from the north, not 100,000. So he's talking about the amount of Israelis that would be displaced from northern Israel. He's saying that if Israel starts a war with Hezbollah, that 2 million Israelis will have to be evacuated from northern Israel, not just 100,000. So that's basically sort of like a threat. Okay, that's a threat. And I want to just remind you guys of something that I shared in one of my videos recently. The Israeli Civil Defense Department is preparing for blackouts across the country. Okay, they're preparing for a scenario where there's a 50% loss of power across the entire country. And this was reported by the Israel Hayom, and they interviewed the head of Israel's civil defense. And basically, he was saying that Israel is preparing supermarkets to run off of generators. They're preparing for a massive blackout across the country, and they're implementing things to prepare for that. Okay, so that's just another sign that Israel's preparing for war with Hezbollah, and I think we're going to see it as soon as Israel is done with their operation in Gaza, which is going to be very soon. They have to go into Rafah and clear out Rafah. Once they're done with that, then they're going to go after Hezbollah, I believe. And ExxonMobil is going to start drilling for oil offshore in Guyana's disputed Essequibo territory, which Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro has claimed as part of Venezuela. Maduro threatened to use military force to take Essequibo from Guyana last fall. ExxonMobil has been awarded an exploration license by Guyana. The license allows the energy giant to look for oil and gas in a disputed area off the coast of South America, where the Venezuelan military had previously expelled two U.S. oil companies. This recent move by Guyana may escalate its tension with neighboring Venezuela. The energy giant plans to drill two exploration wells in the north and west of the Stabroek block, which has three fields that produce close to 650,000 barrels of oil in a day. Wow. Okay, so this is serious, guys. ExxonMobil is going to start drilling off of Guyana's coastline in the area that Venezuela said was their territory, in this oil-rich area off the coast of Guyana. Good news for Guyana, because Guyana is going to make a fortune by giving this license to ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil is going to have to pay a percentage of whatever oil they extract, or I don't know how they have it set up, but Guyana is going to make a ton of money off of that. So good news for Guyana, standing up against the communist socialist Maduro. And the U.S. Senate passed a Ukraine aid bill today, and Biden urged House Speaker Mike Johnson to allow the House to voice their opinions and not let a minority of the most extreme voices in the House block the bill. The Senate vote was 70 to 29, with 22 Republicans voting in favor, including Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. The bill includes $60 billion to support Ukraine in its fight against Russia, $14 billion in security assistance for Israel, $9 billion in humanitarian assistance, and $5 billion to support regional partners in the Western Pacific. So very, very interesting. We'll see what happens. The border bill was separated from this. So this is not part of the border bill. And a Ukrainian colonel said that the main task of the Russian army now is to completely seize the Donetsk and Luhansk regions by March 17th before Putin's election, which he says they can do because of a significant amount of manpower and ammunition. According to a report by the International Institute for Strategic Research, despite the enormous losses incurred in military operations in Ukraine, Russia will be able to keep reserves of armored equipment in service for at least 3 years. According to the International Institute for Strategic Research, in 2023 alone, Russia was able to reconstitute up to 1,280 tanks and over 2,400 armored vehicles. Additionally, Russia was able to produce new pieces of military equipment that did not originally come from material bases and deep storage, the quantity of which is unknown. According to analysts' estimates, based on the availability of equipment in depots and deep storage bases, at the current rate of losses, Russia will be able to restore its reserves, although with increasingly older and more unreliable equipment, for at least the next 3 years of war of similar intensity. Okay, so they're saying Russia has enough equipment for at least another 3 years, guys. Okay. And here's a satellite picture from Maxar. And on the top, you can see a picture of this tank reserve base in Russia, the 22nd Tank Reserve Base. This was from June 19th, 2021. And you can see, if you look closely, all these tanks sitting here. Okay. Looks like, just dozens and dozens of tanks. And then fast forward to 2023, which is this picture right here on the bottom. And you can still see a good amount of tanks. Okay. There's some of them missing, but not all of them. There's still, probably at least 50% of these tanks at this base. Okay. So Russia has been able to reconstitute 1,280 tanks and 2,400 armored vehicles, guys. So this war is not ending anytime soon. Okay, Putin's not going to stop. And apparently, the Moscow Stock Exchange stopped trading for 2 hours this afternoon. So it looks like Russia's having some issues with their stock market. And China is learning from Russia's invasion of Ukraine and starting to prepare for a protracted war in the Western Pacific by making legal changes that will help integrate military and civilian mobilization, an analyst at the International Institute for Strategic Studies said on Tuesday. Recent moves by China to ease any return of reservists and veterans to their former units, as well as give the military access to civilian infrastructure and fuel, shows Beijing's thinking about how to fight a conflict in the Indo-Pacific, said Maya Nguyen's senior fellow for Chinese security and defense policy at the IISS. These changes suggest Beijing thinks an Indo-Pacific conflict might not be a short, quick, swift victory after a surprise attack, but actually acknowledging that potential conflict might be protracted and a war of attrition, she told Nikkei Asia at the launch of the IISS Military Balance 2024, an annual report. Beijing is studying Russia's moves to cope with the war in Ukraine. She said Moscow had thought it would conquer Ukraine in days, but fighting continues nearly 2 years later. Wow, so China is preparing for a protracted war. And U.S. stocks tumbled on Tuesday, falling from recent highs as investors digested a hotter than expected January inflation report that showed prices cooling slower than forecasts anticipated. All three major indices closed down more than 1% on the heels of the report. The Dow Jones fell 1.4%, or around 500 points. The S&P 500 saw a similar drop, and the NASDAQ composite fell the most at 1.8%. Wow, guys. And Polish farmers have blocked the sixth border crossing between Ukraine and Poland. And in France, construction workers have blocked the most important strategic oil depot in Lorient and Brest for the past 6 days. And like I reported earlier today, in Antwerp, Belgium, farmers blocked one of Europe's largest ports. Okay, so these farmers are really causing a lot of problems. And earlier today, some Polish farmers dumped out grain from Ukrainian trucks that were sitting in line on the border with Poland. And Ukraine is saying that that could be potentially Russian sleeper agents or provocateurs that are trying to destroy relations between Poland and Ukraine. I want to just turn your attention to some earthquakes over the past week. We have a lot of activity in the New Madrid zone in western Tennessee and southeastern Missouri. We had multiple quakes this past week. Actually, today we had a 2.3 magnitude earthquake in Howardsville, Missouri, and it was very shallow at a depth of only 8.7 kilometers. Here we have another one in the same area just 5 days ago, a 1.2. And then there was a 1.8 yesterday, not too far away in western Tennessee, Ridgely, Tennessee. And then there was a 1.6 3 days ago in the same area. So 4 quakes just in the last few days in the New Madrid fault zone. Okay, so New Madrid is waking up, guys. And if you don't know what the New Madrid fault line is, you better read about it, because in the 1800s, there was a massive earthquake here in this fault line. I think it was like a 7.4 or 7.2. I can't remember the exact amount, but it was over a 7.0 magnitude earthquake. And it caused the Mississippi River to run backwards for a short period of time. And the earthquake was felt all along the East Coast. There was extensive damage. Okay. So scientists say that we are overdue for an earthquake, a massive earthquake from the New Madrid fault line. They're saying that the chances of another big quake like that is like 25 to 30% in the next couple of years, okay, which is very high. All right. We also have a lot of activity in New Guinea, okay, and in Indonesia. And here's where we have some of the most powerful volcanoes on Earth. And if one of these volcanoes or several of them were to blow in this area, it could cause a volcanic winter because of the amount of ash that would be ejected. And tropical volcanoes have a more pronounced effect on climate. Okay. So the volcanic winter would be noticeable if one of these volcanoes in this area were to erupt. So make sure you have a secondary heat source, guys. Okay. And I want to just share with you some information about this LiDAR mapping that's been going on in the Philippines. I've been showing you guys this flight path the last couple of days, and it turns out that NASA is monitoring aerosols in the Metro Manila area. Okay. So they're measuring aerosols. So that's why they're flying back and forth like that in this grid pattern here, okay, which usually represents LiDAR mapping, but looks like they're gathering aerosol information. So that's the latest breaking news that I have, guys. I will be back tomorrow with more breaking news. So make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell icon down below so you get notified when I post these updates. And I'm probably not going to be live streaming until Thursday or Friday because tomorrow's Valentine's Day. So I hope you guys have a great Valentine's Day. Spend some time with your significant other. And I will be posting updates tomorrow, but not going to be going live until the end of the week. So thank you guys for watching. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.